Hi, my name is Beth Simone Noveck, and I'm delighted to be with you today to share a few thoughts about learning AI and why it's important for those of us working to serve residents in the state of New Jersey. So, in this brief time we'll spend together, my goal is to provide just a very cursory introduction to AI in the hope that I can persuade you why it's so important to learn more. When I'm talking here, I'm really echoing the words of the governor, who has been talking since day one of his administration about the importance of technology in our work for improving how we serve residents. And he has spoken as recently as this week, but especially in the State of the State in 2024, about the relevance of AI in particular, this transformative technology, perhaps the most transformative technology of our lifetimes, and surely the fastest growing in the work that we do. We think that here in New Jersey, AI, used ethically, used responsibly, used well, and importantly, used in service of our mission as public servants, can help us to do a better job in our work. Let me be very clear from the outset. We believe that, like the calculator or the word processor, AI, and in particular generative AI, is going to help us working with the tools to do better work. AI does not replace us. AI does not substitute for humans for our expertise or judgment or intelligence. Rather, like the calculator, it is simply a tool to make us more efficient, more effective, and more productive in what we do. So we'll spend a few minutes today talking about what AI is, why to use it in our work as public servants. But above all, again, my goal is to convince you why to learn more and how to go about learning to do so. So we'll just provide a very brief introduction today. Now, we did a survey of people at the DEP, but we also did a survey of 5,000 public professionals across New Jersey this year. And in both cases, everyone said, we don't know enough about AI. We're not using AI yet at work for a variety of reasons, in most cases because we don't know if we're allowed to and we don't know how. But everybody really said you want to know more. And so that's the purpose of this workshop. And we're delighted that you're spending a few minutes with us today talking about it. Now, artificial intelligence is really just a kind of software. It's a software that we use for processing large quantities of data. It allows us to engage in problem solving by making sense of large quantities of data. And I think the name artificial intelligence, a term that was coined by researchers who met in the 1950s at Dartmouth College under the leadership of computer scientist John McCarthy, they were really trying to look at mathematical models for understanding the human brain. So for them, the term artificial intelligence may have made some sense, but I think it's done us really no great gift over the years because it's created a lot of confusion about what these tools are. They are not sentient. They have no feelings. They have no moral judgment. Like your calculator or your word processor, they are just tools, but they are pretty sophisticated tools. And they're probably the most important tools we've ever developed for making and helping us and the organizations we work for smarter, faster. Now, the classic type of artificial intelligence, one that's been around for, 15, 20 years, the AI that's in Siri, that's in your Alexa, that is in the autocorrect on your email program, that's what's known as machine learning. All that machine learning does is it is really software for spotting patterns in large quantities of data. So let me give you a quick example. Machine learning was in fact largely developed by having software look at videos on YouTube and then learn. And it's learning how to teach itself to find patterns that this thing with two ears and whiskers and a tail is a cat. So it's spotting patterns. There's another thing with ears and another thing with whiskers and another thing with a tail, and it's learning to spot those patterns. That has really practical and powerful applications in the real world. So, for example, at MIT, they're doing phenomenal research that is now in hospitals around the world where they're using this ability to detect patterns to help radiologists detect and spot and diagnose breast cancer faster. And today I was on the phone with researchers at Rutgers who are doing something similar around skin cancer tumors. The software is looking at thousands and thousands of examples labeled as cancerous tumor and non-cancerous tumor, and then teaching itself how to recognize when something is or isn't cancer. Does it replace a radiologist or a doctor? Absolutely not. What it does help the radiologist to do is to diagnose faster and better with more fine-grained tools and accuracy. Now, generative AI, which you've heard a lot about in the news in recent weeks and months, is just a form of machine learning. Generative AI, which is sometimes also called a large language model, is a form of software that instead of being trained on videos of cats and dogs on YouTube or being trained on images of cancerous tumors, is a form of software that is being trained on words from the internet, as well as images and other kinds of information. This training data, as it is known, has allowed the software to learn patterns in human speech. So these commonly available commercial tools that you've heard about, like ChatGPT, made by the company OpenAI, or Claude, made by the company Anthropic, or the Google Gemini products, or the Microsoft Copilot products, all of these are examples of large language models or generative AI, and these are essentially just really souped up word processors trained on a large quantity of information of words from the internet. These tools allow us to work with language more easily. You don't need and increasingly won't need some special program like ChatGPT. It won't be like you have to go to somewhere else to get AI. AI is being built into and is already in the devices you use every day. And if you've seen the ads from Apple or bought one of the new iPhones, you've seen how much they're advertising and pushing your ability now to get your emails edited or to help you write better using your new iPhone. Again, tools that exist in both Android and Apple phones and have always been there and are getting better because of the fact that software is learning the patterns in human speech. You can think about generative AI in many ways like the way a child learns language. In the same way that a little baby listens to its parents and caregivers speak and begins to pick up patterns in language, and then lo and behold, at 7 or 8 or 12 or 14 months, then begins to articulate words and sentences, that's what's happening, except a whole lot faster with generative AI. Now, generative AI is interesting because it was originally developed to solve the problem of machine translation between languages. Previously, machine translation tools were very literal. They would translate one word at a time, the cat sat, translating one word at a time and give you that sentence in Spanish or French. And we all know the kind of goofy translations that that leads to. Pretty okay if you're doing the cat sat on the mat, but not very helpful when you're trying to translate something idiomatic like she let the cat out of the bag. So, to solve this problem, really in brief, computer scientists develop techniques for looking at language in phrases, in clusters, in chunks, and how words relate to one another in their common usage in language. And in that way, we have been able to develop better models. And that's essentially what's happening with generative AI. It's not looking one word at a time, it's looking at clusters of syllables or words. And then, because of its knowledge of the patterns in language, is able to spit out and predict what the next word in a sentence should be. If I know that this word typically follows this one in English, I'm going to be able to make a fairly good guess at approximating what I should say next, which is why these tools are so fluid and so fluent at producing speech. I like it to think about them, if you like this analogy, as like a really good wedding planner. A really good wedding planner is able to have a sense of the whole room and to know that Uncle Bob is not speaking to cousin Sylvia, who isn't friends with so and so. And so I have to put this one at table 4 and that one at table 12. They're able to kind of look at the patterns holistically to be able to better organize its output in terms of language. The result of this, on the one hand, is really fast, fluid output of speech, which is super helpful, but it also means that output is sometimes unpredictable, which is why these tools often make mistakes and why in our policy in New Jersey we emphasize that any content that is created, that is produced with AI, in the same way that you would do for content created by your summer intern, needs to be proofed, needs to be looked at, and needs to be reviewed. We will give you instructions both by email afterwards and at the end, but I wanted to preview the fact that you have access to the most powerful AI models through what we call the New Jersey AI Assistant and our new advanced AI assistant that gives you access to multiple models. We allow you to use these tools without restriction, but in order to use these tools, you do need to learn more about how to use them, hence this conversation right now and the training course that we will tell you about more at the end of this video. So let me just preview something about what you'll learn in that course. What we're going to talk about is common uses in government, and we're going to show you how to do those things hands-on in your own work. Some of you have told us you already use generative AI in your work to create text, to summarize text, to brainstorm, and a variety of other things. And that idea of generating text, as the name implies, is probably the most common usage of these tools. So, for example, New Jersey's Department of Labor takes the letters that it sends. This is just an example of some of the government speak we used to use in our letters to unemployment claimants. Complicated, legalese, a little difficult to use. And they're putting them into generative AI and saying things like, rewrite this letter so I can better understand it. Here's an example of what you might see, a sort of slide of an example using Google's Gemini tool. And throughout my slides, I'm going to show you some examples of different tools, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, just so you can get a sense of what these different tools look like. Again, we'll show you which ones you have access to, but we want to just provide some introduction to what some of these tools are. So we can tell you, rewrite this letter so I can better understand it. And then I could further say, hey, rewrite it at a ninth grade reading level, and here is the text that it will spit out. So in brief, they took all of the letters that they had been sending to residents around unemployment services, put it through Gen AI models. Gen AI provided rewritten drafts, again, giving those tools directions about the fact that we wanted the letters to be clearer, to be more accessible, to be at a ninth grade reading level. Those letters were then reviewed by professional staff, and then we've been able to send out better written letters that are leading to communications that are much easier for people to understand, and more importantly, much easier and faster for them to respond to us and comply with the policies that we ask them, and the requirements that we ask of them. These tools are really good at working with text, even if you already have written text and don't need to write something new. Maybe what you're trying to do is to summarize something. So here's an example of from your own agency, environmental justice law. We uploaded the law as a PDF, and we said, summarize New Jersey's environmental justice law. In the training course, we'll teach you how to give these instructions to AI. You'll notice the instructions themselves here are in plain English. You don't need to know any computer programming. You don't need to know any special code. You're giving directions known as prompts in plain English. But that said, there still is a technique, there are tricks for how to get the tools to respond really well. You know this from your Google searches. You know that over the years you've developed better techniques for how to get Google to give you what you want in terms of a search. AI has some very similar tricks and techniques, and we'll show you those in the training course, how to give you summaries that are helpful in the way that you want. You can not only summarize a single document, you can ask AI to synthesize learnings from multiple documents. So here we ask AI to compare regulations across 3 states. And we give this tool, this is an example from a free tool called Notebook LM from Google. This one is not approved for use for work in New Jersey, but is a free tool that you can play around with at home for your own uses. So we gave it multiple documents and asked it to compare and contrast these rules, and it gives us a pretty good summary. And not only that, it gives us citations. It tells us the source of the information that it's giving us so we know where it's coming from. In the live training that we had, and this is now a recording after the fact of the live training, we had a great little presentation from Bill Zipsey, supervising forester, about how you at New Jersey DEP have actually been using generative AI to collect and then synthesize thousands of comments that you're getting from residents, allowing you to be able to listen to what people are telling you, to be able to make sense of that feedback faster, and to be able to engage with residents in ways that were not possible before. So here are just some of the learnings that have been coming out of that citizen engagement or consultation. Again, something that would have taken many people many hours to make sense of. And frankly, we might not have done the engagement at all in the old days when it would have just taken us too much time and effort to go out and ask. Now, because we can synthesize a lot of information quickly, it allows us to have conversations we might not have had before. In the course, we'll give you a lot more instruction in very short, bite-sized videos about how to do this prompting and what are some good tricks and techniques. But I'll just say right off the bat that it can be really helpful to experiment with different generative AI tools, to be able to try different models for yourself, to learn which ones you like, which ones are better for the kinds of work that you want to do. But always, no matter which tool you're using, or even if you're using multiple tools, you always want to have a human checking your work, especially somebody who's knowledgeable about the field that you're working in. Now, you'll want to do some reflection about what you want to do with AI in the work that you do. And a lot will depend on what your role is. So let me just put up for a moment some examples of ideas of things you might want to do with AI. Again, I'll just let you read it for yourself because there'll be different things that will be useful for different people. Maybe it's generating content, maybe it's summarizing content, maybe it's rewriting content. You will find the uses that are most useful for you. Maybe it's reframing or rewriting materials for public usage in simpler language, in less government speak. Maybe it's trying to have a more friendly tone. Gen AI can help you work with language in really powerful ways. There are a lot of benefits to these tools for residents as well. So, not just for you as the public professional, but for the people we're serving, these tools can be powerful aids to understanding what we do in government, to interacting with us in government, and to making that interaction faster and easier. I like to think that Gen AI in particular, even though the name has the word generate or generative in it, that the most useful thing we do with it in government, because we work with so much text and information, is really about analysis, much more than it is about generating. It's super helpful for us to make sense of the world around us. So just to give you a quick, fun example for your personal life, not so much for your work life, but to really illustrate the power of what Gen AI can do, it's really good at analyzing content. Go ahead and take a picture of what's in your refrigerator right now and upload it to ChatGPT and ask it, what should I make for dinner using these ingredients? The AI can analyze the image, identify what's in your fridge, and give you helpful suggestions of what to make for dinner tonight. You can ask it to write a bedtime story for your children. You can ask it all kinds of things. And I really recommend that you try the tools because without trying them, we won't know how to use them in our work. We won't know how to regulate them. We won't know, frankly, what the things are that we want to do with them, and perhaps more importantly, the things that we want to avoid. So let me sort of wrap up by saying a little bit about risks. Because in our survey to you, you told us about the concerns that you have with generative AI. And especially as the DEP, obviously there's a lot of concerns about the environmental impact of these tools. But there's some other concerns we have to have in mind. Again, in the training course, we'll talk about these in more depth. We'll talk about more issues, but let me just highlight two or three of them. One is the problem of what's sometimes called hallucinations. There's a lot of concern that these tools spit out very confident answers that are completely wrong. And here's an example. It used to be if you asked ChatGPT, and this is what it looks like on your phone, these tools work on a mobile device, not just on your desktop. If you asked it, how many R's are in the word strawberry, it confidently told you 2 R's in the word strawberry. Now, more recently, in some of the newer models, not unironically, one of the latest ChatGPT models, a model is just the latest version of the software. Has corrected this problem. The newer model is called Strawberry, where they've managed to fix this problem. So one thing to realize is that the hallucinations are decreasing. The models are improving, they're getting better. These tools are very new. And now, sort of a year and a half, 2 years into them, they are improving. Hallucinations are dramatically less than they used to be, number one. Number two, learning how to use these tools, learning how to give them better instructions, what's known as prompting them again, helps to reduce hallucinations. Better instructions leads to better results. Finally, there are ways of using these tools and products that use a technique, and I'm going to use the jargon here, but it's unfortunate, but I want you to be familiar with the term of retrieval augmented generation. I think it's easier if I show you this rather than just tell you. A lot of these tools now, instead of making up answers based on what it knows from looking at patterns in language from the whole web, will let you upload a specific document or set of documents and give you an answer only based on those documents. You can try this for yourself with Notebook LM. Here you can see an example of where I've given it a set of documents, and then I can type a question in here and it will give me an answer exclusively based on these documents and give me citations and sources to those documents. So this problem is getting better, but it's still one we have to be aware of, which is why we emphasize that any use of Gen AI should be checked by and overseen by a human. But lastly, let me just add one more thing here. And you have expressed a lot of concern about this, and we all worry about losing the public in public service. What do I mean by that? The trust relationship between government and governed is extraordinarily important. We think it's hugely important that we retain the role of the public servant, that humans be the face that people see in government. So, excuse me for the lack of image there that I had on the last slide, but let me just make the point to say, uh, again, I want to emphasize these tools are not designed to replace you. These tools are designed to augment the work that you do. Okay, let's talk for a minute about the concern that many of you have expressed, namely the concern about environmental impact. There are obviously a lot of worries that these tools use a great deal of energy, more than we would like them to use. So, in the short time we have here today, I won't be able to say too much about this, but I will just say that competition in the marketplace, especially most recently, competition that has come from the development of the DeepSeek model, the DeepSeek software in China, software that has lots of security problems, is not approved for use and should not be used, but it is much less energy intensive. And the reason I want you to be aware of this is because it is driving competition in the US market to ensure that these tools are becoming more energy efficient. But we're still not there yet in terms of where we'd like to be. What is also worth being aware of is the fact that these tools, thankfully, are also helping us in really interesting ways in the fight against climate change. I showed you some medical examples at the outset about using machine learning in the fight against cancer. Well, we're seeing similar uses of the pattern recognition ability of these tools, the research power of these tools to help in the fight against climate change. And we will show you more examples of that, send you more examples by email, and talk more about that in the training course. Okay, where do you go from here? Well, important is take the training program. It'll take you about an hour and a half to do all the exercises. You can stop and start. You will get a certificate at the end when you finish. I won't belabor the details here of how to sign on because it'll be easier to read about them in the email we'll send you. But in short, The training program is available through New Jersey's learning management system. Uh, you will learn lots of different things you can do with the tools. And I'll just show you here what it'll look like when you sign on. If you've taken any kind of training course in New Jersey, you've seen the Civil Service Commission's learning management system before. This is what it looks like. You'll find it right here. Responsible AI will send you those instructions. And once you've taken the training, you will then be able to get access to the latest, most powerful AI models available. We want you to be using for work. We want you to be using the New Jersey AI Assistant, not only because these are the better tools, but because these tools are secure, they're safe, and companies are not allowed to use what you input to train their software. So let me be very clear. If you use the free versions of these tools, not approved for use for your work, the companies can use what you type in. It's not private, it's not secure. They can use that to train their AI models, which is why for work we want you to use the AI assistant. To access the AI assistant, which looks like this, we want you to take the course, which will explain to you how better to use these tools. There's lots of research and data out there showing that these tools can make you and me more productive in what we do. They don't replace us, they help us to be more efficient, to be more effective, and to do our jobs better. Overall, all of you have said you're really excited about the possibility that AI can make your job easier, can make your job better, and especially as public sector and public servants, can help us do a better job of serving residents and of getting new skills that we want and need to develop in our careers. So to access the training, we'll send you an email. We'll send you instructions on how to access the assistant. But if you have any questions, helpdesk@dep.nj.gov, helpdesk@dep.nj.gov, or instructions here for how to get answers to your questions about AI, how to use it, and how to serve residents better in the 21st century. Thank you.